Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 7th July 2016. The first article is related to the challenge across the Durand Line. Now, Pakistan sees the Durand Line as a settled line, but Afghanistan has objections with regard to Durand Line as a border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So in this context, from security perspective, Pakistan wants to manage properly the border at the Durand Line. But if you observe, the President Obama, he has described the Durand Line as either side of the half-park theater of terror. It means they are so culturally connected, the people living on both the sides. Almost the Durand Line is insignificant. So in this context, the Pashtuns who are living on either side of the Durand Line, they cross the border regularly. Now Pakistan wants to regulate that, manage that, and to bring in certain systemic work to decrease the incidence of terrorism in Pakistan as a state. Now on the other hand, Afghanistan sees it as, first we have to politically settle the border, then the issue of border management comes. There is a fundamental difference in thinking. And second thing is, Afghanistan also feels it is a Pakistan's response for Ashraf Ghani, the president of Afghanistan, getting distanced themselves from Pakistan after the quadrilateral coordination group talks have failed. So these are the things. Now coming to fault in our free speech. Now in this context, let us understand, recently the author Perumal Murugan, he wrote a book, One Part Woman. It is also called Matoruba Hagan. So in this book, many of the people criticized, saying that it has violated their sentiments, and it is also eroticism is there in that particular novel. And local police, they have went ahead, and the peace committee has called the Murugan and asked for an explicit apology from him. So then Murugan, he himself declared that on the day he was dead as an author. So in this context, the matter went to Madras High Court, and Madras High Court has criticized this action of the police and said that few people cannot take free speech for granted, or the free speech of individuals cannot be taken away by a mob. A society cannot dictate what other individual has to speak and how other individual has to exercise its rights. Now in this context, there is a term which we need to understand. So the heckler's veto. Heckler's veto, it means the disturbance of law and order, the fear of disturbance of law and order makes the police to behave or subdue themselves to a mob behavior, and in the process they may violate the rights of the citizens. So in this context, the High Court judgment has clearly made sure that the free speech cannot be compromised at the cost of the mob behavior. But on what basis it has decided that? That is, one, he is a known author and a respectable author, and he has got many of the prizes for himself. So in this context, what the author says is, yes, Madras High Court's judgment has to be applauded. Now, the basis of the judgment that he has got this particular thing, so it has been done so, that is not probably good in this context. Now for example, an unknown author writes or expresses his views and opinions, and if the mob attacks to him, does this judgment not apply to him? So that is what is the question is posed over here. So the author says Madras High Court judgment has to be applauded, but however, the speech to be free, completely free, the judiciary must stop asking literature to justify itself. So that's what is the author's statement is. Now coming to pulses, you know that India is a cereal rich country. After the Green Revolution, there is an excessive focus on rice and wheat. So we are a cereal surplus, but per capita consumption of the cereal is decreasing, and also as the incomes of the people are increasing, the consumption of the cereal decreases and the pulses when meat is bound to increase. But however, due to cultural practices, consumption of meat is still less in India. So in this case, in India the cereal consumption is decreasing but pulses consumption is increasing, but India is deficit in the production of the pulses. And across the world, Even many of the countries are unable to export the pulses because they themselves are deficit. So, though India is importing the pulses from more than 40 countries, it is still not able to import more than 25% of the requirement. So, the only way out from this is to become self-sufficient in the pulses production. For this purpose, improving the productivity of the soil, research, and conversion from cereal cropping towards the pulses crops, these are the steps which we need to take up. Now, coming to a report, that is Chilcot Report. So in 2009, the British Prime Minister Gordon Brown, he has appointed Chilcot as the chairman to inquire into the Iraq war. The report finally has come up, and it has indicted then Prime Minister Mr. Tony Blair in the Iraq war. What it said is the UK has no sufficient reason to enter into the war. Our UK joined the invasion before all the peaceful options are exhausted. And the next, UK did not follow the UN Security Council resolutions. In that way, it has undermined the United Nations. And Prime Minister Tony Blair has deliberately exaggerated the threat posed by Saddam Hussein. And the report has clearly said that Saddam posed no imminent threat in 2003. So, George Bush and Tony Blair, they publicized to the world that Saddam Hussein possesses chemical weapons of mass destruction. That is the reason why an attack is necessary, which can pose threat to the British and American citizens. And finally, Britain intelligence agencies also produced very false or flawed information. These are the observations of the Chilcot Committee. So, the truth is getting unfolded with regard to Iraq war. And coming to at home in New Delhi, it is about the recent reform of recent reshuffle of the cabinet. So in the reshuffle, there are two things which have become clearly visible. The caste and religion, these also have played in inducting the new ministers, region, caste and religion. Along with that, the performance of the ministers also have played a role. And above all, in the coalition era, till date, no prime minister has asserted his position. Now, it is clearly visible that the prime minister has mind of his own, and he is clearly assertive whom he wants to have as his council of ministers. So the unity of command and also prime minister and his control over the resource, his council of ministers is clearly visible in this scenario. These are the articles for today. There are very few articles. Thank you very much.